Good morning, friends. Welcome to the 17th weekly lecture of Samachar Manthan. So, like last week, Supreme Court has also given a lot of landmark verdicts this week. Also, they gave on adultery, which we will not discuss because we have already discussed, I think, 3 or 4 lectures before. So you can refer to that video for for all about Section 497. Let's start with the most important of the Supreme Court's verdict, which is that it declared Aadhaar as constitutional. So everybody in India is now aware of Aadhaar, what it is. Let us first come to the discussion which or the verdict which Supreme Court gave. Because you know that Aadhaar had issues related to privacy and all these things. Therefore, a petition was filed in Supreme Court to decide on the constitutionality of Aadhaar, and therefore Supreme Court in its verdict said Aadhaar is constitutional, but it is also provided with some safeguards. So let's discuss the SC verdict. So first is that it strikes down Section 47 of Aadhaar Act. So the overall observation which Supreme Court said that Aadhaar is important for good governance, and it fulfills the constitutional requirement. It does not violate the constitution, and it meets the concept of good government and limited government. So Aadhaar, but it said that in its original form, the Aadhaar Act, it cannot be implemented because there are a number of loopholes in the act, and therefore it has provided certain safeguards to ensure that that Aadhaar is not misused. The first safeguard is that Section 57 of Aadhaar Act has been scrapped. So Section 57 of the Aadhaar Act gave permission to private companies to compel its customer to give their Aadhaar number. So also the court has, under this section, it was the power was given to mobile phone operators and the banks to link their Aadhaar number with their bank accounts and their mobile phone. The Supreme Court scrapped that. So now if you receive a message from Vodafone or Airtel which tells you that you have to link your mobile number with Aadhaar, otherwise your phone will be your phone will become dysfunctional, then they cannot do that. You can report that in the court because they have been forced. Now the Supreme Court has laid out clearly that they cannot force you to give your Aadhaar number. Second is it transfers the sovereignty and ownership of data back to the citizens. So in the Aadhaar Act, the trustee of the data was the UIDAI. If anything, if your data is misused, it will be UIDAI which will be punished. But after the verdict says that your data, you have a sovereignty over your data about your personal details, and if that is violated, you can force the government, or you can appeal in the court, and you can check the government. You can file a case against the government for misuse of the data. Third is that no citizen can be denied benefit if there is failure of authentication. So one of the major concerns which the activists have raised against Aadhaar was that suppose internet is not functioning well, right? and when your biometric device is enrolled, and biometric device requires a certain amount of, it requires internet. So if it's not working, or suppose these daily laborers, because of their work, their fingerprints, they kind of change with time. So many times there could be a possibility where his fingerprint does not match. So in that case, the court has said that if there is authentication failure, it will ensure that the service is provided, or the government will ensure that the service will be provided to that citizen. I mean, authentication failure cannot be excuse of denying any service to any consumer or any citizen, right? So and those people who are not enrolled in Aadhaar, even they will not be denied any services. So there are 1% people who still don't have Aadhaar, even they will be given access to the services, to the government services and to the government subsidies. And fourthly, it said that decision of Lok Sabha Speaker regarding money bill will come under the judicial scrutiny. So if a speaker decides or certifies any bill as money bill, people can still appeal in the court, and the court will have the right to do judicial scrutiny of that decision. And if based on judicial scrutiny, if Supreme Court finds that there is malified intention behind this decision, and this bill cannot be money bill, then Supreme Court can reverse the verdict of speaker. So what are the benefits of Aadhaar? So there is a good diagram that you have in the notes which explains which areas Aadhaar can be linked with and which areas it is illegal to link Aadhaar. So let's discuss the benefits of Aadhaar. First benefit is that it will make it possible for the government to implement its ambitious project of JAM. So JAM is Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and Mobile. So idea of the government, and it is the most ambitious project of the government, that we will integrate all of them, and that will make the subsidy allocation very easier. So a person can open its Jan Dhan account, then it can link that account with Aadhaar, and through use of mobile phone, through use of smartphone, the government can directly transfer any subsidy in his bank account. So through the use of JAM, government is planning to directly reach to the citizens or to the poor people, and it will also make the subsidy less distortive. Second is that it will make it easier, the identification of beneficiary, it will make it easier. So right now, in all the welfare schemes, you have two kinds of error: exclusion errors and inclusion errors. Inclusion errors means that those people who are not poor, even they are included in the category of poor, and they are also provided with subsidy by the government. The exclusion error is that those who are poor, the government cannot identify them because they don't have any document, and because of that they are unable to avail the government subsidy. So both kinds of error can be eliminated with the use of Aadhaar. With the use of Aadhaar, government will be able to know that these are the people who are poor, these are the people who are rich. So the subsidy or the government schemes would become cheaper. There would be less distortion, and it will reach to the people, or government subsidy will reach to those people who actually need it or who actually require it. It can also tackle the black money issue. So use of Aadhaar in financial transaction can reduce the menace of black money in the country, because government will have the data trail of your transactions. Fourth way it can help is income tax returns. So by linking PAN with Aadhaar, it will be much easier for you to pay the tax, and it will be easier for the government to track you if you don't pay the tax. So you will not require 8-10 documents. Just by linking PAN and Aadhaar, you can easily fill your income tax. Next is in opening bank account. So after 60 years or 65 years, only 40 to 45% people in India had bank accounts, and the reason was that because they don't have any identity proof for themselves, and because if in order to open a bank account you need an identity proof. Without proof, it will be, I mean, the bank will not open your account. And now that everybody will have Aadhaar, and by showing Aadhaar, your bank will open the account for you. So it will, bring more people within the ambit of formal financial inclusion. Next is scholarship. Now this is also an important area, because ultimately right now caste and the caste certificates, your creamy layer certificate, it's very tough to get. You go to a Tehsildar office, he will ask for some bribe and all. With the use of Aadhaar, it can be done online. So ultimately, all these certificates can be issued in a very swift way. Also, scholarship to the SC students, they can also be dispersed very easily with the use of Aadhaar in their bank accounts. Next is pension. This also has same point as scholarship. Also the issue of digital life certificate. So right now, an old man needs to go again to the treasury again and again in order to avail pension, because he has to give a proof that he is alive, right? And it's very tough for those who are above 90 years old, fully crippled, to take them to office. It's very tough. So the government has brought out with a digital life certificate thing, where you can give a proof that you are alive. So that can also be linked with Aadhaar, and with the use of Aadhaar, this digital life insurance scheme can work, and the old people will not require to be physically present at the office. What are the issues with Aadhaar? First issue is questionable legal backing. So legally, as you know, that this Aadhaar bill was passed as a money bill, and many people argued that because it was passed as money bill, and every experts told that there is no way Aadhaar can be classified as a money bill. So therefore, it has not got the requisite permission from the Rajya Sabha. Ultimately, it is just passed by Lok Sabha, right? So it has not got what you call as formal parliament approval. Second criticism is that it can lead to violation of rights. So see, UIDAIA, it comes under the government. Now government can use, or it can force the UIDA to give them the data of the people, right? Because UIDA CEO is actually a government servant. If it gives data to the government, what government can do is government can start profiling. It can start profiling, it can start harassing some particular groups or community, or it can start profiling or harassing the opposition leaders, the activists, and those who are against the government. So ultimately it can lead to what you call as a surveillance state. That is the biggest concern activists have over this Aadhaar. That Aadhaar, through the use of Aadhaar, government can start tracking the activities of these opposition leaders, activists, critics, NGO walas, some particular group which it does not like. And if that will happen, that will curb the liberties of the people. The big boss would always be watching your activities, and that will go against the very basic foundation of democracy. Now let's understand the way forward. So if an answer to Aadhaar comes in exam, definitely you will have to support it. But your way forward should again be cautious. It should not be completely blind support of. And actually, in the issues part, if you would have read in the newspaper that the CEO of the ex CEO of the UADI, R.S. Sharma, he challenged online that here is my Aadhaar number. Now ask, or now you find the details of me. And people kind of some hackers find out, or they found out everything: his phone number, his credit card details, everything. Somebody even transferred 1 rupee to his account as a thing to show that, see, we can also get money from your account. So it ensures that Aadhaar is not completely safe. So therefore the way forward to is that it is a very innovative way to improve the governance process in India. But along with Aadhaar, certain safeguards need to be they needs to be there in order to ensure that Aadhaar as a project should not be misused. What are the safeguards? First safeguard is there should be a privacy law. There should be a data privacy law. There should be a privacy law. Also, there should be a data protection law. Government has they have drafted a version, but it should be, it should not be like Lokpal that has been passed 4-5 years back and still nobody knows the status of Lokpal. So we require a data protection law, we require a privacy law, and they are required in order to curb the power of the state, define the power of state, define clearly what is considered as violation of privacy, define clearly that if data is not protected, if it's misused, what will be the exact amount of punishment, who would be accountable. Next is, it should also create an institutional mechanism like a post of privacy commissioner, and it should be an independent post like CVC, whose job is to see that the data of the common people is not violated, and also to ensure that the state is not profiling the citizens. Also, our national cyber cell should be made well capable of dealing with any cyber attack. Also the government need to be made, or the common people need to be made more aware, because there would be a number of proxy sites which will ask your Aadhaar details and you will give it. So next is to educate the citizens. So this ends the first issue of the day, which is SC declares Aadhaar constitutional. Let's move to the next issue, which is Supreme Court not to live streaming of court proceedings. So Supreme Court has recently announced that in important and constitutional matters, there could be a live streaming of court processing, which means you sitting in Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai, anywhere in India, you can watch the live proceedings of the Supreme Court. It's just like being there present personally. So the Supreme Court has let certain rules regarding that. First rule is that only the cases initially only constitutionally important cases will be live streamed. Secondly, you will require a permission from the court in written few days. So if somebody wants live streaming of this case, it has to it will have to ask permission from the court, and both the parties will have to be agreed on that. Thirdly, if that live streaming is shown by the news channels, by YouTube, anywhere, that live proceeding cannot be transmitted again. It cannot be downloaded, it cannot be transmitted. If somebody transmits, if suppose ABP also shows the live streaming, then ABP would be prosecuted. So no one can show no one can transmit the live streaming. Also, there would be a 10-minute delay between live proceeding and the time it reaches to the citizens in India. 10-minute time is there so that it gives an opportunity to Supreme Court that if something really, something really unfortunate has happened in those 10 years and the Supreme Court does not want it to be shown to the normal citizens, it can tell that these 2-3 minutes should be edited or they should be deleted from the stream. So what is the significance of this decision? So right now the problem is that everyone can go to any court, there is no problem, but there are 30-40 seats there, so it's not possible for people who have interest in law or who have interest in legal things. They can go to court and watch these live proceedings. So first thing it will do is that it will educate the people about the law. So people have a lot of misgivings that this judiciary is only for elites, they're inefficient, they're incompetent, and therefore they lose faith in judiciary. They don't appeal, they go to outside court settlement. By watching these live proceedings, the faith of people in judiciary would be developed. They will realize that these judges are not just here to live in those fancy bungalows. These are very, very competent men who have a very great workload. So, it will bring the citizens closer to the judiciary. And it will also develop their faith on judiciary. Thirdly, it would also train the law students. By now, they can watch live proceedings, and through that, they can learn a lot of things from the senior advocates and the judge. Fourthly, it will reduce the dependence on second-hand narrative. So if you would have been watching news channels, you would have seen that when any Baba or any celebrity gets or when his hearing is done in the court, these Hindi news channels mostly, they kind of show a very third quality video animation that the Baba folded his hands for mercy, and then the judge said, then you're not liable for mercy, and then the Baba started crying, it broke down, it crying, and they all show this in animation mode. And from where do we get that? We get that from the lawyers that are sitting in the court. They actually tell the press this thing happened. So it is second hand narrative. So most probably the lawyer the lawyer must have told something else to these news channels. The news channels would have added some masala on it in order to increase its TRP, and that masalized version of the whole story you kind of watch. Now, when this will happen, it will reduce that, because you will be directly watching the court proceedings, so you will know that what is happening inside. Well, how has the Baba kind of reacted, how the court reacted, what kind of argument the lawyers had presented, and what was the observation made by judge. All these things would be decided, or all these things you will see in first hand. Now let us look into the issues, or what are the issues with respect to live streaming. So first issue is that it will lead to unwanted public grace, and that would tend to make judges subject to popular public opinion. So see, suppose there is a Nirbhaya case and the public opinion is very anti, that we want murder of those people, we want public hanging, this and that. Now if a judge only believes in facts, it believes in the evidences, and if the evidence is weak, the judge if the judge would give his decision based on public opinion, it would kill the basic essence of judiciary, because ultimately law functions on evidences, on facts, right? But this would when there will be live proceeding, it would make the judge feel the heat. They would feel that whole country would be watching them, and therefore if they go against the kind of popular demands, they will face a lot of criticism. First of all, it would also make their life insecure, because they could be a judge does not get security like a prime minister, right? So it would also make his life more dangerous, and he would be more prone to give a popular decision, which is not a very good legal decision. Also, the individuality of the judges will become more to, or it become a subject of public debate. I mean, there would be a 30-minute special program on judge and its observation, right? So that would also, because ultimately it should be like that, the judge should keep low profile, right? If a judge would give a very, very good opinion, right, the news channels will bring that this judge has given this, and he will, they will make him a star or they will make him a villain, and ultimately that will affect the kind of low profile the judges have maintained in last 65 to 70 years. Next is, there is also a greater likelihood of lawyers aspiring to publicize themselves through the address to the bench. So see, if somebody of you must have, and you should not watch, actually it's highly unrecommended with very low IQ, at least for the UPSC aspirants. If somebody would have watched Big Boss, in Big Boss what they do, because they're in front of camera, they try to keep a high profile. They will shout, they will beat each other, they will do any kind of very, very kind of rustic stuff. Idea is to gain as much attention as possible, because they know that if they will get as much attention, if they will, if their works will be in media, it will be published in media, they will get opportunity after post Big Boss to make a career in Bollywood, in any field they like. Same will happen in court. The courts, the lawyers will become like Sunny Deol. They will start shouting Tariq pe Tariq in front of judges, because they would know that it would, if they speak really well in a very kind of a melodramatic way, they could win the trust of the people, and after this case they will get more business, right? So ultimately that will affect the, what you call as, decorum of the court. Also, it will do away with the medium of responsible reporting. So right now the reporters and the lawyers, they don't tell everything which happened inside the court. They kind of exclude or edit some things which have happened, which they believe that it is not good if people will be able to know about it. But in this case, this will not happen. Everything will come out, and if there's some mishappening which has happened, which affects the prestige of the judiciary, it will still be out, right? So these are the issues which are related to the live proceedings. Let's move to the next issue, which is again a Supreme Court verdict. So I will not go to the whole issue, because I have actually dealt with criminalization of politics, I think few lectures back. So I will not go to the main issue. I will actually discuss the Supreme Court verdict and the flaws in that. So, the Supreme Court has said, it has said 4 5 things. So there was a petition filed in Supreme Court with respect to, the petition said that Supreme Court should do something to stop criminalization of politics. It should order the government that not only those people who are convicted but also people who have serious cases against them to disallow from contesting elections. So in that kind of context, Supreme Court gave this decision. So first part is that while filing nomination, the candidate must declare if there are any pending cases in against them in the court. Second thing which court said, that political parties are responsible for putting up details of criminal cases filed against their candidates in their website. Which means that every party has their official website, BJP, Congress, everyone, and they will say that, see, these are our candidates for this next election and this is the criminal history of those candidates. Next is that it said that the parliament should pass a legislation to stop criminals from entering police state. So the onus of responsibility lies on the parliament. Fourth thing, it said that political parties should publicize the background of their candidate via the electronic media and issue declarations. So in newspapers, in electronic media, they need to kind of, they need to publicize the background, that this is the background, he has so many charges against him. So these are the 4 5 observations, or these are the 4 5 decisions Supreme Court took in its recent verdict. First is that they need to inform while filing nomination about the criminal charges against them. Second is the political parties need to fill, or in their website they need to show that, okay, these are our candidates and these are the criminal charges against them. Third is parliament should pass a legislation to stop criminals from entering politics. And fourth is political parties need to kind of publicize the background of their candidates in electronic media. Now, what is the significance of this directive? First significance is that the ordinary voters can have an informed choice. It will ensure that the ordinary voters will have informed choice about their to be elected representatives. So they will know, okay, there are 8 people, 6 people are without any criminal background, and there are 2 people who have criminal background. So they will decide, okay, we will not vote for these 2 criminal background, or we will not vote for those 2 people who have criminal background. It will also incentivize the political parties not to give ticket to the people from criminal background. Now, because they know that they will have to publicize that in electronic media and their website, and that will destroy the image of that political party. What are the, so these are the significant, but there are large number of flaws in this verdict, and that meant that there were a number of articles which were written criticizing the verdict. First flaw is that there is a practical problem. So ultimately, first of all, the voters do not read the websites of these political parties. Have you ever been to INC website or the BJP website or the BSP website? I mean, nobody reads the website of the political parties. So first of all, it will have a very limited impact on information. Secondly, it goes against the logic. I mean, it is in the interest of political parties not to publicize the antecedents of their, or the criminal antecedents of their candidates, and the court is saying that the political party will have to publicize that in electronic media. I mean, why would you give money to Ashtak and say that, okay, my candidate has 37 rape charge or 37 murder charges, please show it in your prime time? Why would you do that? So it defies the logic of practicality. I mean, the thing in which they have no interest, why would they do that? Next is, it leaves everything on Parliament. Now, Congress and BJP might fight with each other on hundreds of issues, but there are some issues which are non-negotiable in which they are together. And one such issue is criminal politicians. Both of them have done nothing, and they will do nothing for next 30-40 years also, because ultimately somewhere in some states all of them take help of these muscle power or the people with these kinds of background. So they know that if they will pass a law, many of their senior leaders will become unfit for fighting elections, and you have given the same parliament the responsibility to pass a strict law against criminalization of politics. If they wanted to pass in 70 years, they would have passed. Why the petitioner went to you only because of the fact that they waited that executive and legislative they will do something. Because they didn't do anything, only because of that, the petitioner went to the Supreme Court. So therefore, leaving everything to the parliament would not work. Thirdly, there is no word on fast track court. So, there is a fast track court for so many things, for rape, for crime against women, for consumer courts, for commercial courts, and you don't have a fast track court for trying the criminal politicians. And then this is actually most important, because ultimately the root cause of everything is that we don't have good representatives. If we will have good representatives, we will have a good government. If we will have a good government, we will make good laws. If we will make good laws, we will have less rapes. We will have less rapes. We will have less corruption. So the root cause of everything is bad elected representatives, and this is the most serious issue. And the Supreme Court did not, did anything for the fast tracking the kind of cases against the. I mean, the best way is that you make it compulsory that if you want to fight an election, okay, after you win the elections, your case will be tried in 1 year. In 1 year, it will be completed. and only after 1 year you will be given the job of that MP or a MLA. That will incentivize that criminal not to fight the election, because he will know that if he will fight the election, his case will be fast tracked. So therefore, this verdict has not been received in a positive note by the activist. Let's move to some of very good or some of very important op-eds. So Raj Mohan has also written a very good open this week, and says the word beyond Pakistan. And recently, as you know, that the Pakistani foreign minister and Indian foreign minister reacted strongly to each other, and they again went to UN and bashed the Sushma Swaraj called Pakistan the epicenter of terrorism and everything. And then the Pakistani raised the issue of Kashmir, they raised the issue of RSS, and that's done. So this op-ed says this thing, that everywhere from SAARC to anywhere in the world, wherever India and Pakistan goes, and wherever there is this multilateral meeting in which there are 50, 60, 80, 100, 200 countries, the UN can be called as the world parliament. Wherever they go, they have no other agenda except bashing each other. And that has reduced the international profile of both India and Pakistan, because when India was weak in 60s, in 50s, in 70s, we had no economic power. We were considered as a den of poverty. At that time, our voice was heard very, very louder in the UN, because we did not raise the single specific country issue. We raised the issue of the South, the global South, the third world. We spoke against the Cold War. We spoke against the Vietnam, invasion. We spoke against, the activities of the US in toppling the regimes in Latin America and Africa. We spoke strongly against apartheid. We spoke strongly against the nuclear kind of warfare, or the nuclear arm race. We spoke against the IMF and the World Bank's domination of the world. We spoke against the domination of we spoke against colonization. It was because of India's strong, kind of demand in UN that Britain was forced to give freedom to many African countries in 60s and 70s and 50s. So we used UN to highlight the global issues, to highlight the global concerns. We used UN to become the leader of the global South, of the third world countries. Pakistan also did the same. Pakistan was a part of the NATO, and not the NATO. It was a part of CENTO, the Central Asian Treaty Organization. It was the biggest ally of the US. So Pakistan profile was also bigger. It was not talking about India. Pakistan was used as as a proxy to reach China. US and China had no diplomatic relations. It was through Pakistan that they both were talking. Pakistan was also considered, they used to talk about the Islamic unity, Islamic civilization. At least they were talking about, things, because it was the largest, or one of the largest Muslim nations in the world. So it talked about, the Arab things. It talked about the global issues. So according to Raj Mohan, both India's and Pakistan's profile in UN has decelerated in last 2-3 decades, at least in last 1 decade, because we both are obsessed with each other. We just bash each other and it's done. So other countries have started, thinking that they will come and they will just abuse each other and just go, and they will not discuss the global issues, right? So according to this article, India is doing certain mistakes in UN. in last 10 or 6 or 9 or 15 years in UN, our objective is just two. One, to get a UN Permanent Security Council seat. Second, to pass the International Convention Against Terrorism. Now, first one is not possible because China will never agree to it. And second, even if it's passed, it will not significantly, improve the interest for India. It will not improve the situation on the ground. So why to waste your time in those two futile areas which will not make us gain more? So therefore, Rajmohan says that there are three first important issues which India can raise in the UN, and these issues are: now what we are seeing is a Trump leaving all these multilateral bodies, TPP, it has left UN Human Rights Council, UNESCO, International Criminal Court. So there is a growing mistrust against these international bodies, and this is actually, when UN was established, it was considered as the era of multilateralism, where now, we will jointly decide the outcome of the world. From last few years, we are seeing that more and more people are losing faith on multilateralism, and they are, signing their individual pacts, they're signing their individual deals. And also, there is also a question of sovereignty. So Human Rights Council said something against India's stand in Kashmir, that India is doing war crimes in Kashmir. Now this violates the sovereignty. All these issues India can raise in the UN, right? Next thing it can raise is global trade. So what we are witnessing is a protectionism in the Western world. We are seeing Trump's withdrawal of all these important trade agreements. We are seeing Brexit. We are seeing more and more Western European countries who are actually, who are actually imposing tariffs and all. So this thing also we can raise in UN, that when we had protectionism in 1930s and 20s, the result of that was World War II. So protectionism, ultimately it will make the world unsafe, and it will increase the chances of a war. China and US does not go to war even after so many suspicions, is because both of them trade with each other. Both of them are dependent on each other's economy. Therefore, they cannot go for war. So more trade would reduce the chances of a war. Third is, we can raise the Gulf issues. So there is so much kind of instability in the Gulf. The Syria, Yemen crisis, Iran deal being scrapped. All these things India can raise, that the West policy in Gulf is not really good. I mean, ultimately you had destroyed Libya, you destroyed Syria, you almost destroyed Egypt, you destroyed Yemen, and you did not achieve anything. So somebody should, show the mirror to the Western countries, that what have you achieved by interfering in these countries, except war and criminal and lots and lots of genocide. So this ends the fourth issue. So let's move to the next issue, which is also an op-ed about SSGs. So name of the op-ed is "Women Can Change the Rural Landscape." So SSG, so this talks about how in 150 years, this is 150th year of Mahatma Gandhi's birthday, and therefore Gandhi ji always had a model of decentralized model, where there will be Gram Swaraj, and so this op-ed says that SSG fulfills that Gandhian idea of Gram Swaraj and all these things. So what do we mean by SSGs? So SSG is a self-help group. It is also one of the most favorite topic of UPSC. This year they did not ask, so there is good chance that they will ask next year. So very important topic. You should watch this lecture very carefully. So SSG is self-help group, and it is technically a group of 8 to 10 women who are from the same economic and social background. And what they do is that they are involved in either two things. Either they are involved in the job of producing something, or they become what you call as micro enterprise, or they are involved in the job of lending, or what you call as micro finance. So you have example of number of self-help groups like Lijjat Papar, which started from SSG and later it transformed into a big kind of company. So all these things, the idea is that 8 and 10 women, they kind of unite, and when they unite, they kind of they start saving something, and that saving they will invest in that, so their common saving would increase. By taking this common saving, so suppose each of these women save 100 rupees every month, right? So every month this SSG has 1000 rupees of saving, right? Now it can give loan to one of its member. So suppose one of its member require a loan of 5. This is it's an example, so you should not take it seriously. So one member, suppose it wants to start a small micro enterprise like Lijjat Papar, and for that it requires 500 rupees. So that SSG would then give loan to one of its member who have an ambitious idea, right? And all of the 9 would then keep an eye on her and will ensure that she repays the amount to the SSG. Now when the SSG has a lot of pool with himself, suppose the SSG pool money increases to 10,000. Now it is linked to a bank, and bank gives further loan to the SSG, not to any individual but to the SSG. So SSG's pool amount would increase, and that money would be repaid back to the bank by the SSG. Right, so it is not given to one person, it is given to a group, and it is a responsibility of that group to repay the loan back to the bank. So if you talk of stats, in India there are somewhere around 80 lakh SSGs with active bank linkages, and that involves around 10 crore people, and the aggregate bank balance of these SSGs is 6,500 crores. In 1992, the RBI started this RBI bank linkage program, and it is managed by NABARD and RBI. Now let's look into the advantages of SSG. First advantage is that it solves the problem, or it solves the bank problem of adverse selection. The problem with the normal banks is that if they give loan to anyone in the village, that person does not have any collateral to get loan. So, and the banks are unaware of the credibility, or what you call as the credibility of that person. Now that person has no collateral, no asset to keep as collateral. The bank is unaware of its lending capacity, or its borrowing capacity. That is why the banks are not very keen to give loans to the people in the rural areas, because they feel they will give loan because they don't know about that person. They will give loan to the wrong person, and those wrong person will never repay the loan to the bank, and the bank will face loss. Now SSG solves that problem, because SSG is from that village. So SSG knows that okay, this person is credible, we can give loan to this person. This person is not credible, he has earlier also defaulted on various loans. So that solves the problem of adverse selection. Only those people would be given loans who have a good track record and who can repay the loan back. Next is NPA problem not created. So NPA problem is created because of two things. First is that there is no asset creation, and second is when there is asset creation but the asset fails to generate enough cash flow. So in this case, in the SSG case, there is a very strong peer pressure to repay the loan, and and there is a pressure from the community itself that you have to repay the loan, because ultimately the liability is not of one individual, it is of the whole SSG, right? If one person defaults, then the whole SSG will default. So therefore every member in SSG have the incentive that the other person should pay. So there is a strong peer pressure which forces everyone to repay the loan, and therefore there is less chance of any loan becoming NPA if the loan is provided to the NPA, or if the loan is provided to the SSG. Next is it empowers the woman. So there is a survey by NABARD which said that those women who are part of SSGs, they have more financial income, they have more financial independence, and because of more financial independence, they have a better say in the household matters. So in household matters, the husband, the other male members, they actually consider the advice of the woman of the family. Also, that survey said that those women who are part of SSG, their children, there's more chance that their children would go for all the immunization and the health checkups, and they would at least complete the secondary school. So there's more chance that there will be less dropout if the woman works in the SSG. So that is why, see, ultimately I believe that it is the finance, it is the economy. Just like Marx said that economy is the base of the tree, and those who handle economy, they decide the politics and they decide the social norms. So same is here. If you think of your house, if your mom is working, she will definitely have better say in the family because she is contributing, and the husband realizes that even if suppose I will leave her, she will feed herself. Those who are not working, they think that if we will divorce, what will happen to us? How will we feed our kids? That is why they remain little subservient, and the men also treat them like that. So this ends the next fifth topic, which is women can change the rural landscape. Let's move to the next topic, which is the law of happiness. So recently, the word happiness report is not recent, actually it's in March, but there's an open which came recently, which ranked 156 countries. And India has been rated 133 among them. So it's a really low ranking for India. And the report says that there is a clear-cut relation between a state of happiness and the rule of law. which means those countries which have a rule of which have a better rule of law, the people there are more happy. So it says that it gives some kind of stats. It says that it says that experiences from several nations confirm that the people that the countries with high real GDP, it does not mean that the people there are happy. They have instances of those countries which have a very high GDP, but the people there are not happy because the rule of law is not great there. An example of this could be Gulf countries, Latin American countries. They have high GDP, but rule of law is not good. That is why these countries rate very low in this report. So what are the factors responsible for low happiness in India? Why is India ranked so low in the World Happiness Report? So first factor which is responsible is there are 3.3 crores pending cases in India. So since 3.3 crore pending cases are there, and it affects at least 5 or 6 of their family members also, which means, and because of pending cases, it leads to anxiety, it leads to tension, it leads to deprivation, it leads to financial loss, and that makes people unhappy. So if you have more pending cases, because ultimately it wastes their time, it wastes their money, it does not just affect them but the whole family. So that makes people in India unhappy. Next is criminal justice system. So now again, the police in India is really bad. They don't report, they harass people. Therefore, people don't have any hope that if there's a crime committed against them, they will get the justice. And that is also, is also a level, a reason why people in India are unhappy. Third is high crime. So there is a tiny country next to us, Bhutan, which is not economically very high, but on happiness index it is very high because the crime rate is really low in Bhutan. When we talk of India, the crime rates are really high, and that reflects in the low ranking of India in the happiness report. So therefore, the op-ed says that it's time for India to change the narrative from beyond GDP. We should also reflect, or we should also give focus to these offbeat indicators like happiness report. And Madhya Pradesh has actually launched the Ministry of Happiness. The other states should also follow, and we should take not just GDP but multiple indicators to reflect the progress in India. This ends the 6th issue. Let's move to the next issue, which is SC/ST reservation in promotion. This issue I have already dealt with, but there is a Supreme Court verdict. That is why I am just discussing the verdict. I am not going to the pros and cons of reservation, because that I have discussed in the previous lectures, and you can see that. So as I have discussed in the last lecture, if you would have watched that Nagaraj judgment in 2006 laid down certain criteria which should be fulfilled before you give reservation in promotion to SC/STs. Now, those criteria, as you know, were very high. They should be creamy layer. They should be, the state should reflect that there is not adequate representation Also, it should not affect the progress. It should not affect the efficiency of the administration. So a petition was filed against that in Supreme Court, that the Supreme Court should sit in a larger bench. Nagaraj's verdict was given by 5 bench. So it said they should sit a 7 judge verdict. They should be a 7 bench judge bench which should be sat up, and they should reverse the Nagaraj judgment, because as I've discussed, because of Nagaraj judgment, the implementation of this SC/ST or this implementation of promotion in SC/ST was it was just on the ground. It was not being implemented on the ground. So Supreme Court said that it refused to go for a larger branch. It said that this case does not require reconsideration by a larger branch, and it also said that creamy layer test would apply if reservation on promotion would be given to people from SC and ST community. So the parliament has to decide that okay, this is the creamy layer for an SC/ST officer. And if he belongs to a good background, if his father would have been in a good situation, in that case he will not get the promotion. Only non-creamy layer, like you have in OBCs. In OBCs you have creamy layer and you have non-creamy layer. Creamy layer are people who don't get a reservation because they belong to privileged background. Same Supreme Court has said in the case of SC/ST, that only those in the creamy layer, only those in the non-creamy layer, only they should be given promotion, or they should be given reservation in promotion. Third thing which the court said, that the authority needs to consider efficiency of administration while promotion under the law, and this would be applicable at every step of promotion. So from sweeper to cabinet secretary, this would apply, that you have to first consider the efficiency of administration, that promotion will not affect the efficiency of administration. Only in that case, if the government is assured that efficiency is not hurt, only then they can implement this policy. And fourthly, it has said that the parliament would decide the creamy layer provision. It has left it to the parliament. Now this issue has been criticized a lot, and let us look into the criticism, why it is being criticized by the experts. So first of all, the term creamy layer is not it's an expression which is not found in the constitution. I mean, that is the issue, right? Creamy layer term is not mentioned in the constitution. There is no term creamy layer. So therefore they say that Supreme Court should not have used this term. And secondly, that you identify who is deprived and who is not deprived based on his caste, right? Even the constitution says, Article 15 and Article 16, that economy is not any ground for special treatment. It is the caste which is an ground for giving special treatment to a person. Therefore, people say it is violating the constitution, because if this happens, because court has earlier said in the Indira Sahni judgment in 1993 that you cannot give reservation on economic basis. You can only give reservation on social basis. So therefore, it somehow violates the Indira Sahni judgment. Because that clearly said that the constitution there is no basis of giving reservation on economic ground. Now here you is using economic ground to exclude certain people from reservation, right? If somebody is scheduled caste, he is scheduled caste. His caste is backward. He is socially backward. That is the only criteria we should have. That is the criteria mentioned in the constitution. Also, next is that there is a observation in Supreme Court that that the government should ensure that efficiency in administration is not violated. Now, how is it possible for the government? How is it possible for the government to decide that okay, this government is not failing, this department is not performing well because of the three SC officers? How will it do that? Because it's a team effort. You can't generalize that okay, this person is not working, that is why there is a problem. Ultimately, it will have all the members of the department will have to be held responsible. How will you decide that only these are responsible or these are performing really well? So these are all very subjective scenarios. These are very vague scenarios, and therefore, based on this verdict, I don't think that it will be possible for the government to implement the reservation in the near future also, unless and until there's fresh petition which is filed and the Supreme Court reverses the earlier judgment or the Nagaraj judgment. This ends the seventh issue. So recently the Supreme Court has given a verdict, majority opinion 4/1, and it lifted the ban which was there in the Sabrimala temple, because Sabrimala temple banned the menstruating woman from entering the temple. So it means that between 15 to 45, the age of fertility, the women were not allowed to enter the Sabrimala temple, and if the woman is below that or plus 50, then she was allowed, but not between the age of fertility. The reason the argument which the temple authority said that the deity is a brahmacharya, he is a very celibate deity, therefore he will get impure if there is an entry of these menstruating women in the temple. So Supreme Court has said that it is unconstitutional because on three grounds. Firstly, it violates the right of equality and dignity of women. See, Article 14 says that you are equal before the law, and this practice is actually it is a patriarchal practice. And how could you just deny a group based on or how could you, and you are saying that it will make the woman will make the men impure, so somebody will become impure because of somebody else. So you are holding the woman responsible for something which is not under her control, right? So it violates the Article 14 and the right to equality and dignity. Next is, it is a form of untouchability. Because ultimately you are denying them entry because you consider them as impure. Just like just like many temples in India consider Dalits as impure. So the whole argument is same, untouchability, right? Because somebody is impure. So that is why it is also and because untouchability is banned in the constitution. And third is, entry ban isn't a fundamental to religion. So this is also the court, as you know, decides if any practice is constitutional or not, based on the criteria of whether that thing is fundamental to the religion or not. For example, few years back, Supreme Court said that kirpan was fundamental to religion. It said few years back that beard is not it is not fundamental to Islam. Recently, it says that mosque is not fundamental to Islam. So it decides the validity and non-validity of any decision, because I think few years back they also decided on this Jan festival of Pashuyam that it is not fundamental to religion. So based on this criteria, it decides whether any practice is fundamental to religion or not fundamental to religion. So this ends the 8th issue, which is entry ban. Let's move to the next issue, which is the issue of paid news. So this was in news because election commission has said something in court that this should be considered, something should be considered as part of paid news. So that is why we are taking the issue of paid news. So what do we mean by paid news? So paid news is any news or analysis appearing in any media, print or electronic, for a price in cash or kind as consideration. In simple language, if you understand, paid news is any news published in a newspaper which looks like an authentic article, but ultimately it's an advertisement for a political party or a candidate. So when you will read the news, you will feel like it's an article, it's a genuine article, unbiased article, but ultimately it's a paid, it's an advertisement for that person, and that person has either paid the media houses in cash or kind to get that article published. So is paid news an electoral offense in India? No, it's not an electoral offense in India. Paid news as such is not an electoral offense, but paid news can become electoral offense if you include the amount you have paid for publishing that article, and if that amount exceeds the legal limit of 70 lakhs, then your candidature could be kind of dissolved. So if somebody publishes paid news, that is not an offense. But suppose EC gets to know that X candidate has given 50 lakhs to the newspaper house to publish fake news, and his other estimate is 40 lakhs more. So his total estimate is 90 lakhs. So since it's 90 lakhs, it violates the 70 lakh ceiling, and therefore his candidature should be rejected or dissolved. That is how you can be punished under paid news. There is no offense, or it is not illegal to publish the paid news. Now let's look at the negatives of paid news. So first negative of paid news is that it affects the people's thinking and opinion. So it affects the thinking of the people because they believe that this article about that person is unbiased, written by an unbiased article, and based on that article they feel, oh, this guy is really good, we don't know about this guy, that he has done so much work, we thought that he was an asshole, he was just a foolish guy, but this guy has done wonders, so I will vote for him. It affects the thinking ability of the voters, right? It also affects the level playing field. See, on one hand there is Malia, the Malia who was not a criminal, but when he was in politics, and Y candidate is a poor farmer. Now Malia can kind of publish. He has the money. He can publish so many paid articles in so many different newspapers, saying Malia is a great guy. He does so much charity. He's just an he is in politics because he wants to do something. He's a neta with a different vision. All these things can be published, right? Now this guy cannot do that. So ultimately, it affects the level playing field. All candidates don't have the equal medium to win the elections, and also it indirectly leads to use of money power in the elections. People with lot of money, the people who are money bags, only they win the elections. Next is, it curbs the faith, or what you will call, it leads to corruption in media. See, most of these paid news kind of payment is done illegally. It's not done with a Paytm or with a check. It is either in cash or in kind. That okay, you kind of publish this news, I will buy you a property there. So ultimately, it affects the media. The media thinks that it's a very easy way to earn money. So rather than kind of publishing the news of farmers and laborers and the Dalits and the minorities, we should publish these things. We'll get a lot of money. Ultimately, it affects the media. Fourthly, it also shakes the faith of people on media. So people would think that okay, this is a crap newspaper. They always just publish fake news about these, paid news about these things. So it is no credibility. Ultimately, media loses its credibility, and media is the fourth pillar in a democracy. So we need a free and fair media for a strong democracy. Next is, what are the reasons behind rise in paid news? So, according to the departmental rated standing committee of the parliament, there are a number of reasons why this syndrome of paid news has increased. First reason is corporatization of media. So media has been, now you see every news channel is owned by Ambani. The biggest example of this corporatization of media is the recent incident where Punya Prasan Vajpayee and Abhisar Sharma was forced to quit ABP News because ABP was owned by a group which also has corporate interest. Now the government forced them that we will see you there if you start publishing, if you don't remove these guys, and that is how they were removed. So corporatization of media means that these people consider media as a business to earn money, not to do social service, or not to bring news to the people. And that is the reason why we have more paid news, because they are always prone to paid news. They think okay, that's a very good way to earn money, so let's give it. Second reason is the desegregation of ownership and editorial role. So segregation, earlier the owner and the editor was the same person. Now editor is different and owner is different. Now the editor does not have the security of tenure. It also there is lack of autonomy. and the journalists have a very third reason is because the journalists have a poor wage. So they have poor. I mean, people think that those people who come in the media, they earn really well. I know sort of people who work in the news channels and they really earn really less with the kind of hard work they do. So these people, these journalists also feel like if they will publish an article in newspaper, they can earn some easy money, right? And fourth is there's lack of regulation. So as you know, it's not an electoral offense. First of all, thus the power of PCI is very limited. It's only limited to the print media. It is not limited to the electronic media. So all these things, has led to rise in the paid news. So what are the challenges, or what are the challenges in dealing with paid news? So the main kind of challenge in dealing with paid news is that because that there is no formal transaction of money. The money is not transferred in a formal way, from one bank account to another or through check. It is either done, it is all the transaction is done under a table, either in the form of cash or in the form of kind. So how could you prove that somebody has paid the money if the article is published? Probably the editor likes that guy. He's a fan of that guy, and that is why he has published this article on his own. So that is the main thing, that to prove that transaction has taken place. Also, it's difficult to identify and solve the cases within the time limit. So there is a cases pending on for 6, 7, 8 years. By this time, that person has already won the MP election, and next election he has lost. So he is no more an MP. So second is that so what should be the way forward to stop this menace? First way forward is that we need to define what constitutes a paid news. So Press Council of India should define clearly whatever falls in the category of paid news and what is not under the category of paid news. Second thing which we can do is that we can do a periodic review of the editor or journalist autonomy and wage conditions. So as I've earlier kind of discussed, that this is because of lack of wages and autonomy. Because of this, these journalists fall prey to kind of paid news. Third is the regulator should have a power to take strong action against offenders, and the body should not include the media owners. So the regulator in this case is PCI. So in PCI, most of the members are the media owners. Why would they take action against their own media firm? That is an issue of conflict of interest. So the regulator should not have media owners as its members. Fourthly, paid news should be made a electoral offense, and that can be done by amending the Representation of People's Act. And also, there should be study of other countries like Scandinavian countries where there's a paid news problem, and the government and the other newspapers should name and shame those media houses which are involved in the unholy activity of paid news. And lastly, we require a alert citizenry who can make the difference by bringing the problem of paid news in public domain. So this issue was in news because election commission had said in the court that if a newspaper is publishing article of any person again and again, and those articles are kind of saying praises, wild praises about that candidate, then that should automatically come under the category of paid news. So, and it says because, and the rationale it has said behind this is that because of this there's unequal advantage which a person gets, which a candidate gets, because he can do, which the same logic which I said, he has a lot of money, he can again and again publish those articles, but a normal individual, a normal candidate will not have the money. So this ends the ninth issue of paid news. Let's move to the next issue, which is a UN for the people. It's also OPIT, and this is very important because UPSC, as you know, has been asking questions on international bodies. I mean, it is asked thrice or four times in last 5-6 years. Last year also they asked about the mandate of ECOSOC and all. So this is in news because recently we have the UN assembly meeting, and that is why a lot of leaders came. Again the old bullshit did and nothing conclusive happened like every year. So this OPIT talks about why UN is, what are the failures of UN in recent times. I have also included some information from outside Google, and I made a comprehensive article in which this talks about the achievements, the failures, and what needs to be done to make the UN an effective body. So let's start with the successes of UN. So the biggest success of UN is preventing another world war. This can be considered as the biggest success because League of Nations failed to prevent the World War II, but UN in 70 years it has prevented another world war from happening. Next is it has played some important role in nuclear disarmament. So there is partial test ban treaty, there is CTBT, there is NPT, which it has passed. Also, UN played a very strong role in imperialism, in ending imperialism, colonialism, and apartheid. So it put sanctions on the South African apartheid government. It played an important role in forcing the British and the French to leave Africa. So it played an important role in ending colonization and apartheid. Next is it played an important role in North-South dialogue, in creation of new international economic order. It also its wings like ILO, like UNICEF, like UNESCO, like World Health Organization. They played an important role in improving the condition of people in the third world countries. Also, the peacemaking, the peacekeeping operations of UN has brought peace in many countries of Africa. Also, it tried to promote human rights by trying the head of the states of many countries, by putting sanctions on those countries which violated the human rights, which tries to do which tried to commit genocide among the people. Also, it has passed number of important conventions, like conventions on child, women, slavery, trafficking, labor, etc. Now let's look at the failures of UN. When you talk of failure, there are too many. So I'm mentioning the names and you can read it from the article. I will also explain how UN failed there. The first failure which UN did was in Hungary and Czechoslovakia in 1950s, when the Soviets were, so there was a kind of a popular struggle, or what you call as mass uprising against the communist regimes in Hungary and Czech. Soviet Union sent his force inside these countries to topple that uprising. Many people were killed. There were a lot of human rights violation, but UN did nothing. Next is in Cuban Missile Crisis, in Vietnam crisis, when there were so many people, and US used chemical bombs against the poor Vietnamese. UN did nothing, right? Next is in NATO, in crisis in Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia, there was a civil war going on between the Serbs, the Bosnians, the Serb Christians, the Bosnian Muslims, and the Croatians. Some 80,000 Bosnian Muslims were butchered in 3-4 days, and UN did nothing to stop the crisis. Next is Israel. So Israel has been again and again committing human rights violation in Gaza Strip, in West Bank, in Lebanon, but again the US did or the UN did nothing for that. Next is when US invaded Iraq and Afghanistan without the permission of Security Council, without the permission of UN again did nothing. It did not impose any sanctions on US. Next, it failed to fail to come at a good kind of consensus on climatic change. We still don't have any consensus on fighting the climatic change. Next is there is financial dependences of UN on few industrialist countries. Therefore, it is biased towards them. So whenever a weak country is involved, where there is no interest of great powers, when two countries are fighting each other and neither US is involved, nor China is involved, nor Russia is involved, in those cases UN played really well. It kind of performed really well in solving the crisis. But when there is big powers involved in the conflict, UN always fails to achieve any important outcome. Also, it failed to stop the nuclearization of the world, and now so many more and more countries are acquiring the nuclear kind of bomb. Now let us look at the failure in recent years. So when you talk of recent years, the biggest failure was in Syria, in Libya, in Yemen. So when you talk of Libya, in Libya there was Mr. Gaddafi, Muammar Gaddafi, who was leading. He was a tyrant. He was a dictator. Nobody can doubt that. But because in those countries there were a lot of tribes, and you need a strong man to control the tribes. And Gaddafi used the oil wealth in benefiting the people. So it used the oil wealth, the revenues from the oil wealth, in giving free housing, free job, lot of subsidies, unemployment allowances, infrastructure development, free health, free education to the people. And Libya was flourishing. The life or the standard of living of Libya was actually the highest in Africa. But then, the West, when the Arab Spring happened, there was opposition to kind of Gaddafi. France, US, everybody supported the opposition. Gaddafi was toppled, but when he was toppled, you had no strong leader to replace him. And then there is a fight among the tribes. And it's been 7-8 years, Libya still has been fighting. Completely, economy is crippled. GDP has been reduced to 1/4 of what it was 6-7 years back. The country was destroyed. Syria, same thing happened. Syria was probably the only, it was the only country in the Gulf which was secular, which had no state religion, right? And then they again supported these opposition. And from that support, the ISIS came into the forefront. So UN failed in all these things. Next is, in recent years, there is aggressive nationalism, there is aggressive xenophobia. So nationalism as a concept is not bad. Everybody should love their country, but when it raises the extreme level, when it goes to extreme level, we get the Hitler kind of nationalism, which is aggressive nationalism, which talks of attacking the country, which calls some people termites. It is a different kind of nationalism, which is a threat to world peace and order. So and UN has failed to stop this rise of aggressive nationalism and xenophobia in the world. Next is, it has failed to find a adequate solution for the Rohingya crisis. It's not doing enough to fight the Rohingya crisis. Also, when you talk of North Korea, it has failed to tame North Korea because North Korea has the support of China. So in all these things, it has failed. So let's now look into this. How can we make UN effective? First is that the veto power should be abolished, or it should at least be reformed. Because ultimately it's because of veto, UN is not able to do anything, because veto power says if any out of 5 countries, if any countries vetoes on the decision of Security Council, then UN cannot take any action in any country. And it is always there that one member of UN is some pro to that country. He will always veto it, and this is the reason why UN faces this problem of policy paralysis. So we can, abolish this veto power, or we can have this thing that if majority of countries, if out of 5, 3 countries agree, or if 3 countries vetoes the decision, in that case only veto power should come into force. In other case, if just 1 country or 2 country vetoes, that should have no effect. Next is, there's a need for balance of power. So Africa and Latin America is completely unrepresented in UN, and most of the peacekeeping operations happen in Africa. So UN takes the job, it decides without the involvement of African countries. So therefore, we require a greater balance of power. See, 70 years back, there were 5 countries which were great. It's fine. Now, there have been a lot of regional powers. Brazil is there, South Africa is there, Egypt is there. You can include these countries in the Security Council. Next is, we need to reform the financing. So UN right now is dependent on these advanced countries for its budget, and that is why it is biased towards them. Therefore, we require that all countries should contribute to UN funds. At least, okay, the rich countries contribute more, but the poor countries should also contribute in order to reduce the dependence of UN on the funds from the rich countries. Next is it needs to work more on human rights. Which means that UN should expand the office of High Commissioner for Human Rights. It should give them more funds. It should take strict action against those countries who violate human rights, even if those countries are powerful. It should show more kind of courage to fight these kind of powerful countries. So this ends the second last topic for means. Let's discuss the last topic for the means. Which is why economic freedom is important for India. It is also an op-ed. So recently, Cato Institute and Fraser Institute released annual Economic Freedom of the World report. And this report says that India performs really bad in economic freedom. So India's ranking in economic freedom declined from 83 in 1990 to 96 in 2016. Economic freedom means that how the ease of doing business, whether the property rights have been saved or not, the court, how the court decides or how much time the court takes in deciding the economic matters, how free is the labor, how free is the hiring and firing policy of that country. All these things, all these parameters define economic freedom in any country. Now the report says that those countries which have high economic freedom, or those countries which rank very high in this report, these are also the countries which have very high GDP. So the report says that on an average, those countries which are at the top of this ranking, they have a per capita GDP of 40,000, and at the bottom they have a per capita GDP of 5,600. Also, there is a gulf of 2 decades between life expectancy of those at the top of index, those countries which have very high economic freedom, and those countries which have low economic freedom. Also, when you talk of gender equality, there is the same kind of divergence. The article says that in last many years, 8, 9, 10 years, more and more countries are moving away from economic freedom, which is a cause of concern. Then this article comes on the case of India, and it says why India is ranked low in this ranking. The first reason why India is ranked low is because of judicial and law and order capacity. So this is actually, as I think I had mentioned this in the economic survey lecture, that in India it takes many years for a property case or for a commercial case to get resolved, and that makes property a very, it's not defined. Somebody can file a case, that I have also have claim over this property. Now this property becomes disputed. You fight in court. Court will decide after 10 years. For 10 years, you cannot do anything on that property. So all this, reduces the economic freedom of a country. Next is labor laws. As you know that we have very, very stringent labor laws, and I have spoken on it many times. Next is because they have been rise in the number of countries. So in 1990, there were just 90 countries which were ranked. Now they are ranking 140, 150 countries. So because of that also, our ranking declined. And one more reason is that we have moved towards economic freedom after 1991, but the other countries have moved faster. That is why they are ranked higher than us. Also, when we talk of property rights, the in India there are property rights related issue. So what has the government been doing to improve the ranking? The government is moving towards direct benefit transfer, where it is directly transferring the money into the account of bank accounts, and it is playing the market thing. So now the prices are not artificially reduced. Market prices are determined by forces of demand and supply, and then government provides subsidy to the poor in order for them to afford that good. Next is government has launched National Land Record Modernization Project. Some state governments have been doing work like Karnataka's Bhumi project, I have already discussed. Rajasthan's Urban Land Certification of Tiles Act 2016. Also, Andhra Pradesh has recently used blockchain technology for preventing property frauds. So all these things government is doing to improve the economic freedom in India. Let's move to the prelims topics now. First is governor's pardoning power. So government has was in news because recently there was a case in Tamil Nadu where the union cabinet or where the state cabinet recommended to the governor that killers of Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi should be released. Now that they have served so much time in jail, they should be kind of pardoned. Now, as you know that President of India and Governor have the pardoning power. They can pardon anyone. The restriction on the power of Governor is that he cannot pardon somebody who has been given death sentence. So when you talk of pardon means that person, all his sentence is now suspended. He will be released from the jail. When you talk of commutation, remission, in this the nature of the sentence and the year will be reduced. So if a person has been given death penalty, then only thing which governor can do is he can change his death sentence to probably life imprisonment or 8 years in jail or 6 years in jail. He cannot pardon that person. When we talk of president, the president can pardon even a person who has been given a death sentence. Also, the governor has no role to play in cases of in case of armed forces, while a president can also pardon a person who has been punished by the armed forces court or the martial court. So this was in news because the state government said that in the 2016 Supreme Court judgment, Nabam Rabia versus Deputy Speaker, the Supreme Court clearly said that the discretionary power of governor under Article 161 is very limited, and in most of the things he will have to, he will have to accept the advice of the state cabinet. He will have to give, he will have to, he will have to accept the advice given by the elected state government. Now the state government in Tamil Nadu is saying that Supreme Court verdict has clearly said that you have no power. So now that we have advised you to leave these people, you have to pardon these people. The governor, on the other hand, is taking the legal route. He's saying that I will have to check whether I have the independent power of refusing your advice or not. So the governor is also asking the central government what we should do. So that's why this case was in news, because the issue is whether even in the case of pardoning, the governor has no power, or he has some power, or he has to accept the views of the state government. The main issue is that is why this issue was in news. Let's move to the next issue, which is World Bank endorses new country partnership framework with India. See, these frameworks are very, very important for your prelims exam. The UPSC has been asking a lot of these unkind of common frameworks. So this new country partnership framework is actually, it's a part of World Bank, this initiative, and it aims to make a country driven model more systematic, more evidence based, more selective, and focused on World Bank's goals of ending extreme poverty and increasing shared prosperity in sustainable manner. So the CPM for India aims at supporting India so that India can undergo transition from low middle class from low middle income country to high middle income country. So the focus of this new country partnership framework would be on improving the human capital in India, focusing more on job creation, resource efficiency, and inclusive growth. So in all these areas, this will work with the Indian government so that India can undergo transition from low income to high middle income country. Next is National Technical Board of Nutrition. National Technical Board on Nutrition has approved new nutrition norms for those children who are chronically undernourished. So those people who are facing severe acute malnutrition, for them new norms have been published by the National Technical Board on Nutrition. So what are the new norms? This board functions under the Ministry of Women and Child. Important fact for your prelims. So it said, it recommended that severely malnourished children must be fed freshly cooked food prepared from locally available cereals, pulses, and vegetables. Also, they would be distributed, these things will be distributed by the Anganwadi centers, and this will be part of the community-based management, health management of the children who are suffering from acute malnutrition. So the rest of it is a factual, very factual information which you can read from the notes. Next is National E-Vidhan application. So this was in news because there was a 2 day national orientation workshop on national e-Vidhan application. So national e-Vidhan application is an app developed by the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, and the focus of this app, or it aims to make all the legislature in India, in country, both the state and the parliament, paperless by making proceedings of his house digital. So it aims to provide information about functioning of the house to common citizens at click of a button. Next is Financial Inclusion Index. So this has been released by Ministry of Department of Financial Services, Ministry of Finance. So this index will, give out how the states and how and what is the the level of financial inclusion in India, and it will judge. It will bring out the ranking of states based on three dimensions, and these three dimensions are access to financial service, which means that whether there is a bank or ATM near you or not. Next is uses of financial service, which means if you have bank account, whether you use it or not, or it lies dormant. And third is quality. What is the quality of service provided by the bank? On the basis of this, it will generate composite index, and that index will be used by the government for further reforms and policy making. Next is there is a new portal which is leased by the MSME, or it is leased by the Ministry of Finance, and this is known as PSB loans in 59minutes.com. So if you want loan of 1 crore and less, then what you can do is you can install an app. You can upload your bank details, your your income tax return, your GST returns if it's there, your PAN number, etc., your assets in that soft copy of that. You can upload it in that app, and then if you want a loan, you can just say, see, I want a loan, these are my credentials. You don't have to go to the bank, just upload it and just say your requirement. In 59 minutes you will get in principle approval from the bank will check all your, I mean, it's not the bank, it's actually a software will check all your details, and it will find whether you are eligible for this kind of loan or not, and in 59 minutes it will, in principle, it will approve on the loan, and within 7 to 8 days your loan will finally be disbursed to you. So this is the whole idea about the PSB loan 59minutes.com, that you don't need to go to a bank in the initial stages. Only in the last stage you will have to go to the bank. In 59 minutes your bank would be your loan would be approved. Next is Agmark online system. So Agmark is actually just like ISO, just like what you call as star ratings and what you have in these electronic B star ratings. Agmark is actually, a sticker of the government on an agriculture product, and only those product which meet the quality desired by the departmental or directorate of marketing and inspection, only those who meet the criteria of that, only those product will be marked with Agmark trademark, right? It means that this product is of high quality and the government approves of this product. So if any agriculture company wants to sell this, they have to go to office, take permission. Now they have launched the Agmar online system, under which through online you will get the approval. You will not have to go to the office to get the approval, because ultimately they ask for bribes and etc. to give the permission. Next is Jan Dhan Darshak app. So this app has been launched by Department of Financial Services, and the app will act as a guide for the common people in a country in locating financial service touch point at a given location in a country. So if you're traveling, you can just search, okay, near my 300 meters from away there is a bank, there is an ATM, right? And that app will also give the number of that bank, so you can even call that bank, that okay, I'm coming for this, and is a bank open or not. So all these things will provide, right? It will provide you the nearest financial interface you had. Next is Ministry of Health, or MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs, merges police forces of 6 UTs. So see, Abhi, when you give IS, if you get Agmod cadre, in Agmod cadre, you can be transferred to any of the UTs, right? But the DSPs, they don't, they are not eligible for that. So you have Pondicherry Civil Services, you have Pondicherry Police Services, you have Dani PS, right? You have Chandigarh Police Services. You have, so these people, Dani PS officer will always remain in Delhi. Pondicherry Police Service officer will always remain in Pondicherry. The problem lies in that is that these things make these officers complacent. They believe that they cannot be transferred outside Pondicherry, so therefore they start behaving in a rash way. So in order to ensure that they don't become kind of complacent and they remain motivated to work, now MHA says that the police force of all these states are transferable to each other's union territories. So a Delhi ACP can be transferred to Pondicherry, a Pondicherry ACP can transfer to Andaman. This can happen, right? Next is Cabinet approves 100% government stake in GST network. So now there's 100. So GST network, as you know, is the IT backbone of the GST. So abhi tak kya tha, the government had 49, there was 49% shareholding for the government and 51 for the private operators. Now government has decided that 100% ownership of GSTN would be with the government, because it's not really good to give a private company entire backbone of the GST infrastructure, entire IT backbone. So therefore government has decided that now 100% stake would be of the government. Let's move to the last prelims news, which is MOHUA partners will Google to launch Loo review campaign. So this Loo review campaign has been launched by the Google, and this is launched by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs with the help of Google. And under this, the guides, the tourist guides, will be encouraged to rate and review the public toilets on Google Map. And after you rate and review a toilet, any traveler will able to know that, okay, there is a toilet after 200 meters. This is the rating of that toilet, so I can use that toilet, I cannot use that toilet. Ultimately, it will force. Abhi people think that, where is the toilet? Where to? So just, urinate in the open. But when they will know that there is after 100 meters there is a toilet, then they can wait and they can, do their nature shit and everything in the loo, rather than defaming, or rather than what you call as, doing it in the road. So this ends the prelims issues of the week. We will meet next week. Thank you.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update from Civil State.